All right, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Um, Barak Allah Shem Yahweh. Shalom Allah Shem Yahweh. Shabbat Shalom. Anai Kofi, Kohelet, the service of Christ. Mashalom Chi. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And we appreciate your presence on here today. Thank you so much for joining us again this evening as we get ready to, or as we are actually in our Shabbat, coming out of the Hebrew Shabbat, which is actually on Thursdays right now in this time of the year, or if you are coming off of using Shabbat as far as Saturdays, that we go from the evening to the rising. So Shabbat Shalom to you right now. Peace, peace, peace. Welcome on on the different platforms that you're on. Thank you for being on and joining us. We appreciate you. And thank you for taking some time out to join us for today. We'll go ahead and get into our Bible pledge real quick. We once again give all praise and honor to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, or the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. We're thankful and grateful to everybody for being on once again, and we appreciate you. And hopefully you've seen we're making more of an effort to make sure that we're putting some content out there for everybody as much as possible. So hopefully you're getting something from today. We'll say our Bible pledge real quick, and then let's get into this quick message for tonight. How you doing, Sister Carla? How you doing, Brother Richard, Sister Mignon, DB, Sister Tiwanda, Sister Monica, Sister Knight, Sierra, anybody who's listening on any of the platforms, thank you so much. We'll say our Bible pledge real quick, and let's go ahead and get into it. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Acham Yahweh. Aman, or in Yahweh's name. Amen. Tonight we're going to talk about you in quotation marks, right? Who is you? I think we'll find that out through context tonight. But you are in no moral position to govern us. I say that again as we get ready to do this live session. You are in no moral position to govern us. What do I mean? How do you have a group of people whose morality is so suspect, where lies continue to be told, blatant systemic oppression, whether you're talking about males who are oppressed, females who are oppressed, blacks who are oppressed, even, yes, whites who are oppressed, all this stuff, but people who are oppressed, disgusting behavior, things that are looked at, and yet people want to tell you that these people are, in fact, in some kind of moral position to govern you. They cannot be our standard. How you doing, Minister Tamer? How you doing, Sister Monica? These cannot be our standard. How you doing, Brother TJ? How you doing, Sister Yvette? You cannot be our standard because of where you are, what you do, of how you hurt the community, how you maim others, how you live in what you live in, right? We keep hearing all these people trying to govern us. For example, who I don't know how much, I don't pay attention enough to it. I don't know how many people still are even caring about what's been going on for decades as far as the Gaza Strip, right? But everybody's so busy trying to make it Republican versus Democrat. And we don't really hear anybody talking about the children losing their lives, people being ostracized, people being offed, weapons of true mass destruction being utilized. And yet we didn't care about any of that. All we care about is Republican versus Democrat, right versus left. How you doing? Shalom. All we care about, how you doing, Shafa? All we hear people talking about is all this stuff. And then once it stopped getting you views, once it stopped becoming something that anybody really cared about, once it was something where people were tired of giving money to something they knew wasn't going to change, now all of a sudden we just left it alone. Yet these are the people that we act like have the right to judge us. These are the people that we keep giving the right. These are people that people can't wait to run and to vote for and tell you why voting for one person is better than the other. And one hand washes the other. Two sides of the same coin. Two wings on the same bird. The same atrocity. 92B sneaking off in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. How you doing, Sister Shima? Right? So the people who are in charge of the system, the people who are in part of this beast, you have no rights. You've lost your moral right to tell us right from wrong. Do I agree that there's some things we should change in our diaspora? Sure. But when it comes to our diaspora and being under your charge or your care, obviously you haven't cared really enough about us to make things better for us as a community, as a people, as a diaspora. So we simply claim, I'm sent tonight to remind some of us that when we look at our oppressor, we have the right to tell them, you are in no moral position to govern us. We're done with being governed by those who care less about us. We're done being governed by those who will not help us to improve. We're done being governed by those who are not going to help us to actually grow. We're done, right? At least I'll be honest with you. I'm done. Maybe some of you are still okay with it, but I'm at a place to where it's like, hey, if you're not helping our diaspora, if you're not going to help us as a people, if you're not going to help us to do great things, if you're not going to allow us to be in a position of growth and love and honoring ourselves, if you want to keep telling us we have no right to learn our language, to discover ourselves, to speak up for ourselves, then you have lost the right to govern, right? Matter of fact, you really never had the right to govern. The fact of the matter is that we are coming into remembrance of ourselves. We're getting back to law, getting back into our natural law. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? How you doing, Sister Beverly? We're getting back to being who the Most High told us and called us to be. And so since that's where we're headed, you have no right to govern us, right? You never really did, but the only thing that gave you a right was the fact that we were disobedient. How you doing, Yosef? And in our disobedience, we lost certain rights because laws protect our rights. And so we lost the right to freedom. We lost the right to be able to delve into things, to be 100% accurate when it came to free will and things like that. We lost some of those rights because we decided it was more important to do whatever we felt like doing, whenever we felt like doing it, however we felt like doing it, rather than to follow what the kingdom says. Hola, mi hermana, ¿cómo está? So if these are the things that we're looking at and dealing with, we did lose that because we were given over to the reprobate mind. We were given over to the rulers that the Most High allowed us to be under as punishment, right? As chastisement for Jehovah loves those who he chastises, right? If he just destroys, is one thing, but if he chastises, he's punishing, he's giving you that spanking, that whooping, if you will, because he would like for you to go ahead and turn back, right? If your child ends up getting a spanking, it's because they need you. You need them to turn back. Prayerfully, if you do it righteously, you're not spanking your children just because you're angry. You're not spanking your children. You're not disciplining your child just because they get on your nerves. You're not disciplining your child just because you're having a bad day, right? But you're doing it because you want to ensure that they are on the righteous path and that they recognize that punishment can come from you before it becomes even worse for them than what they might feel with the sting of your a belt. Some of you would use it, whatever. We're not encouraged, especially you should follow the law, by the way, whatever states you're in. Different states say you can do different things with your children. So I know we come from the old school. Hey, it's my child, I'm do whatever. Just this is for educational purposes only. Be careful how you discipline them, not just because of you need to make sure you're not abusing your child, but also look at what your state says is abuse. Just want to put that out there since we talked about that. But these people are in no moral position to govern us. Right? They're in no moral position to govern us. They lost the ability to be in a moral position to govern us when they weren't moral themselves. Right? We lost the position to govern us, or to be governed by the Most High through law, when we didn't follow it. Right? They're not our culture. They're not our standard. Right? But they decided it was more important to double down on immorality that they already possessed and double down on immorality that we might have already done. And they decided to go ahead and take it to another level, right? They are in no position, never have been really, but they're in no position morally to govern. How do you govern me by a Roman and Greco-Roman reality and mentality? And the fact of the matter is that all of your dictators, by the way, people don't even realize this. How you doing, Erna? A lot of people might not even recognize this. Dictators were voted in. You know this, right? Like this whole thing of talking about dictators and stuff. You can't have a dictator who just makes himself one. That's not a dictator. Look up what the Romans talked about when they mean a dictator. A dictator is when they are having such an emergency situation, when they want to colonize and conquer and they can't get to the level that they really would like to. And so what do? You get one person, because even in their being together, right, or even in what they were doing, you must recognize that they would always have two, and forgive me, consuls, I believe it was called. I believe it's called consuls. You had two consuls. So they would have two consuls who were voted in, and they would take over for each other, and they would make sure that the other one wouldn't step too far out of the line. Matter of fact, when it came to these consuls actually, when it came to wartime, these consuls would act as generals. And when these consuls would be generals, these consuls would actually get to a position of making sure that one day you might fight under one consul or one general's rulership. The next day you would switch over to the other. Matter of fact, going back to the times of Carthage and going back to the times of Hannibal, Hannibal infamously actually used that against them, knowing that one consul was more headstrong and younger and wanted the glory and wanted to get in there, and the other consul was a little older and realized Hannibal was on one and was whooping them, was like, hey, maybe we should slow down. So the day that the younger consul was in place, Hannibal basically kind of gave him a little tease and made the person upset. And before you knew it, now they were like, oh, okay, let's go ahead and run out and get over to Hannibal, right? And let's deal with them. So and they dealt with them on battlegrounds that were not the most acceptable for them to win, and they lost heavily, lost really bad. It was, probably at this point the fifth, sixth, seventh, really bad defeat that they suffered. How you doing, Minister Shante? So, and by the way, when you check out us tomorrow on Shabbat for Shabbat service, Minister Shante will be giving us the word. Praise Yahweh for Minister Shante. Thank you so much. And, we're glad, and thank you for everybody who came out and supported Apostle Yomi. I really don't know what happened to the signal during it. But those of you who were able to come back real quick, thank you so much. I still don't know what happened. And I couldn't hear when we came back. This has happened to us a couple times. I'm not sure what happens. And usually is when I'm away from the device. So there must be something where maybe my inaction is not allowed to continue, but I apologize for those who dealt with that today. But thank you for being there. Yeah, it was consuls. Okay, thank you. So so Baba Kasha Aman. Yeah. So we have to recognize and realize and come to proper conclusion as far as who is governing you and do they have a moral right? Who is governing you? Does the United States Corporation have the moral right to govern us? Right? When it comes to morality, should we listen to them? What moral grounds has the United States Corporation, and before it was a corporation, the United States of America, have they shown us the ability to judge us on moral grounds? Are they filled with righteousness? Right? Before the United States or anybody running for president or anybody who's in there, what has Trump been talking about recently? I saw something, I don't pay enough attention to it. So if I'm out of context, somebody please correct me. I believe I'm correct on this, but please feel free to correct me. Donald Trump talking about Oakland is terrible and LA is terrible and all of these places are terrible and this and that or whatever. Um, why is it that you're not talking about, forgive me, I'm not trying to act like we got to be reverse, what people call reverse racist or whatever, but why is it that you don't talk about, um, the trailer parks? Why are you not talking about how there's stretches of land in California and Nevada and places to where people are living in camps, tented outside in places that make Skid Row look like nothing because the whole families are out there in those situations? Why are we not talking about the fact that people are mixing their own drugs, like people make moonshine and are selling those things to where people are drinking it at different places and stuff and getting so crazy that they're offing people? Why aren't we talking about Dylan Roof and how Dylan Roof looked up to certain people, like even the Unabomber and people, as heroes? Right? Why is it that we're not discussing them as that? Why is it that you're talking about Baltimore and rat problems and stuff? And the reality is that there's worse situations going on in Baltimore and you're in the white affluent community than there is in the black communities at times. Why are we not talking about the serial people who do what they do and what they normally look like and how they normally abuse even our men who are confused or our women who are women of the night, and nobody even cares about looking into their deaths and murders, and they go known or nobody cares about them for 5 months, 6 months, 5 years, 6 years, decades. Right? Nobody wants to talk about those. As a matter of fact, here's something that's so wild. They keep telling us that crime is going up. Don't they keep giving you more crime in your face? Crime is going up, but then they tell you statistics say that crime is going down. Which one is it? Right? A half truth is always a whole lot. I've been trying to put out, I'm not going to put out as many videos as close as I used to, but I'm trying to get back to once a day putting out videos, especially on TikTok, but also using those TikTok videos to go out to others. And of course, Patreon and things like that, right? I'm trying to get back on track, and we're doing pretty well in our start with that. And one of the comments I got back on a video that I put out where it was, a lot of people laughed at it. Actually, was I duetted brother Tavares T, and what he put on TikTok, and it was somebody basically talking about, it was somebody who time traveled and he was a slave. It looks like this might be something that the person who originally put it out, it might be a bit that they continue to do, but it was the guy and he was acting on one end as like he was a slave who time traveled into the future, and another guy was watching the Super Bowl. And in watching the Super Bowl, the slave who's time traveled is like, hey, have you is that a field? Are those slaves? And he's like, no. And he's like, well, then, you know, all the black guys are there. They're running around for people's entertainment. And the other guy's like, no, man, no, it's not slavery, man. And they're like, well, the quarterback's white. Is he the overseer? And he goes, no, right? And it's a joke, but it's something there's truth in. And then he says, well, how did they get these? How did they get these places in the draft? He said, well, how do you figure out if they're all right with the draft? He continues to show them how they basically strip them naked and they draft them and they see what their team's needs are. And they basically, pay them. They have it set up to where they can't pay, they don't have to pay them but so much to start off, and all these different things. You saw it? Yeah. And so in the comment section, somebody, a person who is of another persuasion, he made a point to say, man, you shouldn't put videos like this out. This video isn't even necessary. You know what? Only talk about your inventors. There were so many inventors during the same time you're talking about as far as chattel slavery. Look at the black inventors. Focus on that and not the other stuff. And I was like, well, should I keep telling half truths? Why do you want to only focus on the part that looks great? A matter of fact, I even said in the video, in my response to him, I said, well, what about Frederick Douglass? Frederick Douglass is a great situation, but he comes out of a bad one. Should we not talk about the heroic things that he had to do? What about the people who were part of the Underground Railroad who didn't look like me? And yet they're the reason why so many people who looked like me were able to get out that situation and had to play like they liked racism, but reality is they actually put themselves in a really bad position to where they could have lost their lives, their land, their family could have lost their lives, all these things. But what about how they turned a really bad situation into something that showed up where we could be in righteousness, right? And so this person, I had to let him know, you're not my standard. And I told him I was actually happy he put it out, because it's been so long since I've been there. I'm not really that great at just picking out a bunch of content. I'm not paying attention to as much stuff on the news that I used to pay attention to. So I was actually like, thank you, because you actually gave me something to speak about on this channel. Because I don't know if I would have had a video to put out, right? And even when people talk about this stuff, what about how Nikki Haley, right? And she said that there's no racism that exists, but we don't talk about why is it that there's not universal health care? What's the reason there's not universal health care? Do you know? I know people just go, it's racism, but do you actually know why they won't let black people get universal health care? You said in Colin Kaepernick's documentary, he does a resemblance on how they bid on slaves in the NFL Combine. Exactly, most deaf, right? But have you ever studied why it's acceptable to say that black people are the reason why there's no universal health care? Not we're the reason, but because we're the sacrificial lamb, so that the scapegoats, those who are running away and getting away with this, can go ahead and do it. Have you ever done that to stay sick? Sure. So watch this. Um, Supposedly, you were freed in 1865, right? If you were in the United States Corporation, United States of America at the time, to be honest, it wasn't a corporation yet. It was headed there. They were doing stuff, they were changing stuff, but it wasn't quite a corporation. But you were freed, supposedly. We know that 13th Amendment doesn't say you're free. It just says you can't be arrested, or because to be arrested is to make you a slave, and you can't be arrested just because you're black. right? You can't have your rights taken away from you just because you're black now. Now you have to be arrested. So then they started opening up prisons, making big prisons, making big numbers. Slave patrolmen became sheriffs and peace officers and policemen and stuff like that with the same badges still to this day that they had back then, right? However, there came a time to where, and how you doing, babe? My wife is on. The Honorable Amma. As always, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Yeah, until they made up some law to arrest them. But watch this. So the 1860s, supposedly you're freed, even though if you know about the Gullah Geechee Wars and you know about what happened in the Seminole Wars, you fought for your own freedom, right? And America eventually had to say, okay, I guess we'll allow, we got to agree with this, or else we're going to be dealing with too much trauma, right? Yeah, they get you for jaywalking and all that, most stuff, right? So watch this. After that, in the late 1800s, you get around the 1880s, and people start having an issue. People start having a problem. You might not notice, right? But people start having a problem. They start saying, we start hearing black people keep saying that they feel like second-class citizens. They're not getting the rights. They should be free, but they're not treated like they're freedmen. Now, remember, they were freedmen. They took that right away from you to be a freedman, and many of us don't care about the Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Achiyat Baber, how you doing? Right? So we should be freedmen. We gave it up. A lot of people gave that up or had it stripped away when they took away the Freedmen Bank and other things, and people started giving their land up or started being arrested and then for crazy stuff, and then saying your land is now forfeit back to the government. So, but you have this thing now where you have the Negroes. I guess they would call them black folk back then, but you know the Negro is in a precarious position in the United States of America because now the Negro is dealing with what? The Negro is dealing with still being treated like slaves, being put back on the plantation, still being put in chains, going and being put in prisons, and then being sold, their labor being sold by the prisons, who now are the slave owners, but are renting out the slaves to the same plantations that they used to have. People are doing sharecropping. A lot of us have somebody in our family that we probably grew up with that actually came out of, or at least we knew a tiny bit in our family who actually was a sharecropper. Or if you just go back 3-4 generations, you probably run into a sharecropper or a former slave, right? So you have these sharecroppers and all these different people that are being mistreated, and they're saying, hey, aren't we supposed to be Americans? Are we not supposed to be giving this up by this time? Are we supposed to have the 14th Amendment that says that we're supposed, well, the 14th Amendment doesn't say we treat you like that. 14th Amendment just says if you're born, now we have to make you a citizen. You don't get to be a freedman. But in their mind, or in our people's mind, we're still trying to figure out this thing of why are we being treated like people? Why aren't we being treated like a nation? You're not part of the nation. 15th Amendment, aren't we allowed to vote? Didn't we go ahead and leave our women hanging? And so our men could vote like you could? Oh, no. We're still going to mess that up for you, right? Look up what happens in Wilmington, North Carolina, to where senators and governors, or senators and mayors, I can't say governor for sure, senators, mayors, and other publicly voted in officials are taken out of office by people who are tiki torches of their day, except they were more violent back then, right? And remove people, took down a whole section of building. I mean, we can keep on looking at this. This is before, this is 1898, before we even get to 1921 Tulsa, which, by the way, Tulsa built itself back up and then had it happen again, built itself back up, happened again. So not just 1921, they kept dropping the bomb on them. right. As the Gap Band, as GAP, look up what GAP stands for when it comes to that, right? The Gap Band, that's a code song. You drop the bomb. I mean, they're talking about Tulsa. They made it sound really nice though, and they made sure that you thought about it as a love song, but that's a song about our pain, right? Right? And how we still are in love with people who are doing this stuff to us, right? They're in no moral position to govern. Now watch this. Keep on rolling though. Keep on rolling. And so in these late 1800s, in the late 1800s, they start saying, you know what? Black people are asking for too much. They're problematic. Why can't they get themselves together? Why can't they pull themselves up by their own bootstraps? Why can they not make sure that they're doing better? Why can they not make sure? I mean, we set them free, such that people stay till this day. We set y'all free. We gave you freedom. You have the same chance that we do. Why won't you go ahead and just pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Take the bull by the horns. You got to give your best effort. No more excuses. Motivational speech. No more excuses. It's all about you. You're in the same position. You have the same amount of seconds. And I agree with you. We all have the same amount of seconds. But if you're trying to say we got to go through the same systemic oppression with the same amount of seconds, it's not it's not tilted in our favor. It's tilted where we're on an incline, right? Tilted on an incline to where they put grease on the bottom of the boots. They put grease on the bottom of your feet, and you try on your hands, and then put grease all over the side of the mountain, and you're sitting there trying to climb up, right? But they say, why can't you climb up? So this is what happens. There's actually a man, please forgive me, I can't remember his name. I believe it starts with an H, but there's a doctor who actually is one of the first people to start, modern, what they call modern medicine, basically modified medicine. But what they call modern medicine starts coming into play, right? And modern medicine starts coming into play. There's this doctor that comes from another country. Once again, please forgive me, I can't remember the name of the country, but there's a man that comes from another country, and he's the one who starts coming up with stuff like, oh, he starts looking and saying, people who have asbestos, deal around asbestos, they get sick. And he's like, they seem to get cancer and stuff. And people who are smoking too many cigarettes, there seems to be some kind of correlation between the two. And he starts coming with something now we would say is well known. And we would have known in our own culture, by the way, right? We would have already been aware of this stuff. But, he starts determining this stuff, right? You would say, well, what's wrong with that? Here's the issue. He doesn't like us. He marries into a Southern belle. This Southern belle who doesn't like us and is coming from slave owners and is talking about the South shall rise again, daughters of the Confederacy, things like that. Now, she's tired of it. They're saying, what's up with all these black people? We've already given up stuff, this and that. They won't get themselves together. He's dealing with the same rhetoric. So guess what he does? He comes up with, using some of the same science and some of the same mathematics. He does the maths, supposedly. And he says, well, if he said discovers, black people, these Negroes are basically passing away because of stuff because they're in a bad spot, they're in a bad position, and they really don't have access to a physician and stuff. So, in the late 1800s, it was being brought up, should we give universal health care? A decision was made, we shouldn't give universal health care to these black folk, because if we don't give them universal health care, they'll pretty much pass away, or the ones that are always complaining, they'll pass away. The ones that are always saying they need the same stuff that we have, access to doctors, treatment, things like that, they'll pass away, and then we won't have to hear it anymore. Right. So when I hear somebody or when I see somebody in the comment section from the video I made earlier talking about, why are you talking about this at all? And I'm like, hey, is it possible to talk about the whole truth and nothing but the truth? But hey, I only want to talk about half truth so I can live a whole lie. Right. How you doing, Sister Kimberly, if I didn't say so already? So this is what we're dealing with, the lack of morality, the immorality. Hey, I'd rather live in immorality and feign ignorance than have to deal with the fact that we should actually work towards it. And by the way, this is a very American centric thing. If I be honest, not even a Western centric. It kind of sort of is, but it's very American centric to this level. A lot of countries, even if they're still doing us wrong, they have at least admitted they did us wrong, and they've at least put certain things in place so that there can at least be the appearance that they're not going to do us wrong. America says, no, we're going to keep doing the same thing. There's never been a race problem. And this is the issue you're having, this moral position or lack thereof that they're trying to govern you from. Right. So you keep on going. So now what happens past the 1800s? And they say, hey, we're just going to make legislation, or we're going to lack legislation. We're not going to come up with universal health care because it means that these black people who need to pass away won't get it. So then, hey, they haven't passed away. Some of them are actually finding money or getting into natural medicine, natural remedies, things like that. So now you can't say that you're a doctor. You can't say you're something without going to our schools. You can't talk about natural remedy. You can't even say by law that you can heal somebody. Excuse me. How you doing, Sister Nadine? Right. You can't even say by law you can heal somebody. Right. So we get to the 1910s, 1920s. Matter of fact, we get to Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt is going to bring stuff up. They're talking about universal health care. Here's the argument that comes on the Senate floor. Hey, universal health care, it's time to go. No, we can't do universal health care. Black people might get life insurance or might get health insurance. And they keep operating in the same person they keep citing this person's book that, by the way, is still in print. You can still read this. They still teach this. It's still something that's on bookshelves. It's still in print. Right? It's still there. Hey, we need to make sure that we deal with this and deal with this and deal with it. It's still in print that, hey, the black people shouldn't be around. They shouldn't get government assistance. They shouldn't get health care. If they pass away, if they pass on, it would be better for us. Even though the reality is there's a lot of people who would fight for us not to pass away. You still need labor. Right? That hasn't gone anywhere. You still need labor. You still need prisons filled. You still need school to prison pipeline. right? You still have to have certain classes of people, and you still have to have people that are in the same situations, white and black, that actually fight against each other so much that they won't work towards, making sure that we work together and get rid of the people who are messing us all up. Right. So there's still that in the systemic issues and things like that that are systematically put in place, like we talked about earlier when we talked about systems and the nous and the mindset and the intellect. Right. We're still dealing with that. So, but Teddy Roosevelt, he tries to put something in there. They say, nope, we can't do it because black people will probably be able to forget reparations, they'll be able to get health care. Okay, they try to do universal health care again later on when it's Teddy's family in there and Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his cousin who he married, Eleanor Roosevelt, and they come together and they say, nope, can't do it again. Black people be able to get it. And by the way, Eleanor Roosevelt, I know there's this thing out there where y'all are taught that Eleanor Roosevelt, I was taught it too. She was always out there. She was helping out black folks. She was doing this or that, whatever. Eleanor Roosevelt didn't care about you neither. That's just factual. Right. So they didn't do it again. You see it come up later on when you're getting to Eisenhower, he wants to give universal health care. They say, no, can't do universal health care. Black people would get it. And they cite the same books. Right. And this goes on through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000, 2010, 2020s. They will not give universal health care because it means that everybody would have to get the same thing. And by the way, this is ingenious. Can I give credit where credit's due? I know we don't like to use these terms for negative people, right? But let's just be honest. This is ingenious. Why? Because if we give everybody universal health care and therefore everybody is getting the same treatment, then it means that we can't say that there's a group of people who are complaining about it for nothing. And have you not noticed a lot of the people who are right, even right leaning, we would call them in politics? Have you not noticed that a lot of the right leaning people or persons who keep saying, man, you know what? Black folk, these poor black folk, they need to just pull themselves up. They're trying to get my food stamps, they're trying to get this, or they're always on food stamps, they're always on this, they always got medical insurance. Listen to a lot of people that say it and look at them and look at their condition. A lot of them are dealing with the same stuff. They're on food stamps, they need health care, right? They have issues with dental stuff, right? Look at the people who are complaining. They're in your situation. They've been taught that they shouldn't look at themselves as the same as you, even if they might need what you need more. Remember, we've talked about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was locked up, and while he was locked up in prison, there were two prison guards, white prison guards, who felt so great because they were looking over him. They started having conversation back and forth. And Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he looked at him. He said, hey, man, y'all should be in here with us. You should be out there marching with us. What are y'all doing out there? You make too little money. We're supposed to be people who are trying our best to help our people to get jobs and this and that. They were listening to their lifestyle. They said, you guys are way below the poverty line. Right? But they had been taught that they were better, right? And so these are the people who are supposed to morally govern us, who are supposed to make sure they recidivize those who go to prison. We're supposed to make sure that they're looking out for your best interests, who are the people who are trying to teach you how to be like them and make sure that you stop being like yourselves. And you get away from black culture, you get away from being African American, which, by the way, we didn't ask for. You told us that we were, but you get away from being African American or Negro or black or Israelite or people that are part of a diaspora, and just be American as if we're not already indigenous people. These people have no moral obligation to govern us. You said Eisenhower, you think he was ethnicity is linked? Same ethnicity? Well, I don't know if he was Melungeon, but his mother was definitely black. He passed. Eisenhower passed the test. I think Eisenhower's mother was mixed. I don't know for sure. We have pictures of his mother. We know that she was black. We know that she tried to hide it. We know Eisenhower definitely tried to hide it. I don't know. Just like J. Edgar Hoover, he was mixed as well, right? Matter of fact, J. Edgar Hoover was not only mixed, it was often a bunch of his people, right? A bunch of us. J. Edgar Hoover was also, well, I mean, I'll just say J. Edgar, this is no shade towards him, just saying J. Edgar Hoover was also gay. Had a gay lover and left all of his money, his finances, resources for his lover when he passed. And but he also killed a lot of people over that. Right. So these are the people that govern you, people, right? People that are afraid or ashamed of who they are, people who think that who you are is the furthest thing from what your reality should be. People who are these are the people who we keep bowing down to, trying to get jobs from, trying to get decrees from. Hey, can you help us? Give us these grants and stuff. But you're in no moral obligation to. Or you're in no moral position to govern. This is why Yahweh is our ruler. This is why we don't have to vote. This is why we shouldn't worry about voting. If that's the best you got for us, is to keep us in the same position, to give us some technology and say, because we have technology, we actually live better. When the reality is that when we were dealing with segregation, everybody at least had a house. I won't say everybody, but a lot of us had houses. We had homes. The houses were not just houses, they were homes. Before we gave up our husbands to make sure that we could have government assistance, at least daddy was there. And even if you had a hole in the roof, daddy was there to fix the hole. That was his responsibility. Now, what's the difference between daddy and mama? What's the difference between a baby and something that just happens to be in your body? We've allowed people with no moral compass to guide us. Right? No moral compass to be our guide. None whatsoever. Right? You lie to us and then lie to our people and then have our people get mad at us when we tell the truth. How is it that you're going to tell me you're Polynesian and not realize that Polynesian, Melanesian, Austronesian, you look like each other? Why is it that you have such a problem? I can look. Anybody ever looked at a picture of King Kamehameha? I know we've shown it like this probably years ago. We've shown it on these live sessions. But has anybody ever seen a picture of King Kamehameha? Right? The king, the Hawaiian king, right? Now Hawaii, Kauai, that was a branch of people that were on the main island, if you will, and then they took over there, and then they took over Maui, and so Maui was a people, right? Right, like Maui was a people, Oahu was a people, all these islands, there were people, there were groups that lived there, and they fought against each other, and eventually Hawaiians took over, right? So he became the king of Hawaii, known to be over 7 feet tall, all this stuff, and they have pictures of him. They have pictures of him even when he decided where he started playing friendly with the English because they liked the English because they thought the English were great fighters like they were. And when you look at him, even in his military uniform that looks very British, that looks very English, he's dark. He's way darker than me. And he got what you call kinky or nappy hair, all those things. Right? But we don't, but now you'll see people just like you have people that say they're Native American and one drop rule and all this stuff. We forget that there's terms like bloqueamento, where if you will go to Brazil, and in Brazil, they hired people. They did this in Canada. They hired people. Sometimes they kidnap people in Canada too from indigenous people and force them and recidivize them, so to speak, put them in prisons for children, taught them in school to hate their own culture, and then married them into other people. And then they tell you they're the natives. And if you don't have the same bloodline that they have, if you have more of your original bloodline than these who they bred the DNA out of, they'll say you don't have the right to even go to your ancestral land and live there and bring back some stuff and bring back any kind of finance or anything, because if you did, we've caused these people to be so messed up and to be so even inbred and so jacked up so that they'll try to keep whatever little land that they have before they end up passing away, right? They're keeping them basically in a modern version. I mean, it's a nicer version, I guess, but in modern version of concentration camps, right? This is what we're doing. This is what we're dealing in. This is what we're dealing with. This is what our people are being raised in, because we believe that somebody else who's not our people, who doesn't want us to be their people. People means nation. You don't want us to be in your nation. You want us to be subservient, call ourselves something until we say, well, why don't we have the same? We're not even looking for more rights than you. We're looking for the same rights that you have. Watch that. Look, I tell this all the time. I don't worry about reparations. We should make sure that we have inward reparations and take care of ourselves. That being said, do you know reparations is not somebody asking for more? Reparations is asking for what is owed. Reparations is nothing more than, hey, we both worked on the same job. You worked on the job, I worked on the job. You actually made it to management level. Then you stopped working for the job and would just check in as I worked for you. You got wages, the same wage that I was supposed to get, but I never saw my money at all. They said I had to come here and live here and never have a home, never have a marriage, never take care of my children. My children were raised enough while I was still on the assembly line. They were hanging from my wife's breast as I had to leave because they found out that she was my wife. And then once the child got old enough, they sent the child away too. And now all it is, after years and years and years, I'm asking, hey, all those times that you never paid me and forced me to do this stuff, can you just give me my paycheck back? Not even asking for, hey, can we get punishment? My child had to be punished. We're not asking your child be punished, right? Not even saying, hey, we didn't get to eat like you got to eat. Can we get food, or can we get food stamps more than anybody else would get? Can we get free food for the rest of our lives and only get it from healthy places, since you were eating healthy places and throwing us the carcasses or parts of carcasses that were stuff that nobody should eat, and yet somehow we found a way literally to make to turn into lemon, so to speak, to make right? To make lemonade out of lemons, to take literal guts that had nothing but fecal matter in it and found a way to be able to make it translucent enough that we felt it was clean enough to at least be able to have a chewy meal, but at least have something in our bellies, right? All we're asking for is the wage, right? You guys have homes, right? You guys have homes. You guys can be poor, but if you have a house, you can at least flip the house and have something for your babies, right? You guys have land, so you can sell some of the land that you didn't even own and earn, even though we worked on it, and you can at least have some. All we're saying is, hey, can we get land? And can we have something to till the land? 40 acres and a mule shouldn't even be, for real, for real. We're looking too far. Y'all are looking for cash, straight cash, homie. And we don't know how to even spend cash, but fine. If you want that, fine. Just, I don't care about the money. Give me the land and give me the things to till the land. I'd be fine, right? I don't even need 40 acres, for real, for real. Give me 15, give me 20. Nobody, it's mine. I can do whatever I want. Put a fence around it. Let me till it. Let me eat on there. Let me build my home on there and leave me alone. I'll live in a tent for as long as it takes me to build the house. Right? And my family will have all their needs supplied, and anything that we absolutely need, we can hire somebody to come on our private property to deal with, and we can live as private sovereigns. We can go back to being freedmen. Right? That would be enough. But see, even the morality or the immorality that these people possess, or these persons possess. Well, I guess you say this people, the people that are part of the nation, this beastly nation, those persons, they still come out of that and they try to tell you, no, you can't even be private. We won't even teach you that exists. You're in no moral position to govern. And if they have no moral position to govern, then you have to ask yourself, why do you keep letting them govern? How long before you say, all right, man, I'm out? How long? How long before, hey, you know what? Like, it sounds great and everything, but you know what? I'm tired of going to the doctor who's every time I go there, they seem to want to cut another body part off or cut something out from the inside or give me some kind of medicine. And I got to take another medicine with another medicine with another medicine. And they don't ever want to wean me off. Or they keep saying stuff like, hey, we're going to take, your thyroid. And now I have hormonal imbalance for the rest of my life. Where they say, well, we'll just take your ovaries out. We'll just remove your womb. We'll just take out the whole thing. There's nothing wrong with it. And then you have fallout issues. At some point, like, when did we just say enough is enough? See, I say this all the time, but it's so systemic, people don't even think about this. We used to say this, we used to joke like this in boot camp. We used to say, hey, all of us, there's way more people who are here who are going to be the next generation of sailor, right? I was in the Navy, Great Lakes, right? And we used to say, hey, there's way more of us that they need than that they can't survive without. And if they had to redo everything, even if they had to try and start from scratch and zero with everybody, how many times could they do that? If everybody just decided to say no, and we used to say it jokingly, I believe that there has to be structure. I believe there's some great things that do happen in boot camp. I'm not even tripping off it. I was just saying we used to joke around when to kind of keep our spirits up. You ain't really have much to do. So sometimes, when you had quiet times, people, you just say negative things or whatever. Misery loves company, right? And you have people say, what if everybody just said no? And the reality is that everybody on the base, right, who was in training, just decided to say no. It would be such a hit to the Navy that they would have to change policy. Now, it won't happen because people want the bag. People want to continue to be fed. People are hoping that this will be their one shot to be able to get their lives together. And once again, like I said, I'm not even saying they need to do it, right? I believe there's a lot of stuff it wasn't for boot camp I would not have in me. So I'm appreciative for the experience. I'm saying all that to say though, you could shut it down. What if what if just everybody in our diaspora? What if everybody even watch this? What if everybody that just was supposedly, I know this we use this term too loosely now. What if everybody who said they were a Hebrew Israelite? What if everybody who said they were a Hebrew Israelite? What if everybody who was a black Hebrew Israelite, a black Christian, a black Muslim, whatever, just said we're not going to the doctor's offices anymore? How many doctor's offices would shut down, even though we're a minority in this country? How many of them would stop? Right? We have the power to break down the system, and they would change. This has happened. People say this stuff doesn't happen, this and that or whatever. Remember though, Kaepernick situation starts to happen. All of a sudden, they got to change some of the stuff. Matter of fact, the same people that saying they would never take a knee, all of a sudden, what is it? The next year or a couple of years down the road, all of a sudden, all the owners are down there with their players taking the knee. Now they were doing it to kind of give a middle finger to Donald Trump, who was trying to see if he could take the government and force them to, but they were making a point. They were showing you, even though you could say they're billionaires, sure, but they were making a point to say, we private. We ain't got to do nothing you say, bro. That's what they did. They made a point. Doesn't matter if they supported Trump, if they give money to Trump, if they steal Trump's homie. They made a point to say, you ain't in charge. Then after that, hey, right. 2020, all that stuff is happening. All of a sudden, you see in the NBA, the NFL, MLB, everybody. All of a sudden, you got to start changing stuff. People have been asking them change it from the Cleveland Indians for the longest time. Now it's not the Cleveland Indians anymore. That actually shocked me because I don't pay attention to baseball. One day I looked up like a year ago or something like that, and I was like, oh, they're not the Cleveland Indians anymore. I don't know what they call them now, but they're not the Cleveland Indians, right? People have been asking for all these generations, stop calling us Redskins. You know what that means, and scalping people and stuff. And they would find fringe people, the people that were like barely native, if at all, or people who were the $5 Indians and stuff like that. And they would get them to come out and write all this stuff and be quoted and say, hey man, we're cool with it, this and that, or whatever. Wow. The Ashkenazi man who was in charge of him was trying to make as much money as possible off him. But 2020 hit, and all of a sudden people weren't going out like they used to. And now all of a sudden people are saying, like, we're tired of this stuff. And TikTok and social media platforms are picking up more steam. TikTok kind of took the lead in it, for real. But all of a sudden they start picking up more steam. And next thing you know, people say, hey, if we want them to pay for our stuff, we're going to have to give them what they're asking for, or at least pretend like we're giving them what they're asking for. It's the Cleveland Guardians. Yeah, see, I didn't even know what the name of it was. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, titles have changed, teams get changed. Now we're in the era where the guy who's over the Washington football team and what are they, Washington Commanders and stuff now he up out of there and stuff because they're finding stuff. Now all of a sudden, when they find out about the stuff, the emails that John Gruden and stuff was doing, he got to be kicked out of off the Raiders and all this stuff, all these things, because they realize, hey man, if people stand up, if people aren't going to give us what we say, right, we can't govern them. So we got to at least meet them halfway, or at least make it look like we are, get them hooked back on the product. So this stuff will go away over time. And just like we talked about earlier, where who's even talking about what's going on in the Gaza Strip anymore? Nobody. Just give them what they want long enough, act like we care, this and that. We'll make as much money as we can off it, and then we'll go right back to same old. Doesn't even take that long. How you doing, Henry? So, they're not in a moral position to govern us. And we have to ask ourselves why we continue to be committed to people that have no morality and keep saying, give us, govern us. No matter what your skin color is, no matter what your mindset is, no matter if you're on Clapper, YouTube, TikTok with us today, whatever the case might be, you got to start asking yourself, why are you being governed by people who could care less about you? Right? I don't care if you're trying to do Biden, Trump, whomever on the Republican side, if Trump doesn't officially run or whatever. I don't care who you're trying to bow down to. None of them have knocked on your door. You need food? None of them. How can we help you? None of them. What can we do to make sure your children are more educated? None of them. How can we raise the minimum wage? Not one. I don't care if it's Republican, Democrat. I could care less. That's y'all stuff. That's y'all beef. I could care less about that. None of them. What can we do to change things? And if none of them will do anything, then that means all of them are your enemy. And this is the problem that we have, is that, right, it's not the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You straight up my enemy. You're lying to me. You're telling my children that they should be doing these things. You're trying to force me out of certain things. You have it to where there's a fight going on and you won't tell anybody the truth. You're literally getting into a place of burning books, not just on one side, but both sides. Right now, you have it to where we're supposed to like you don't want to admit to us that there's more murders. So you have redefined what murder is to say that the crime rate has gone down. Right. Well, I haven't been on Clapper in quite some time, so we're trying out the Clapper thing. I've been on Clapper in years, so I'm trying. Or well, I don't know how long Clapper's been around, but I haven't been on at least for like a year or so as far as live. So I'm trying to start going live again when we hit the evenings. But we're on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, et cetera, podcasts, right? So trying to see if at some point we can build it back up and getting back on track, right? But thank you for being on if you want to listen. So we have all these different things that people are going on, and we're not aware. They are not in a moral position to govern. Why do you keep being governed by them? Why do we keep allowing ourselves? And once again, it's allowing yourself. You have a right, right? Not every statute is a law. What you hear me talking about, if you want to hang in there, you can hear, right? I appreciate you, right? I'm at the end of it anyways. We record these on YouTube if you want. You can look up hashtag find Kofi, hashtag FIND, and then my name, KOFI. And you can listen if you actually, genuinely want to find out. No offense, just saying, I don't want to leave you hanging, but we're about to take our leave for the night. But we thank you guys for being on. We appreciate you, and ultimately, at the end of the day, who is your standard? What is it going to be, and how long are you going to allow wickedness to be the thing that permeates, or the thing that is going to be over there? Right? Who cares what the name of it is? This whole thing of I'm voting, or what is it? I'm voting for, or I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. If evil is evil, who cares which one's lesser? Oh, we're just voting for policies, but all those policies have to come with other policies attached. No policy is just pure within itself. If somebody gives you a policy, that means something else comes with it, right? Obama, like for example, right, had his wife on stage, was dancing, doing all this stuff. Everybody saying, "Oh yeah, they're feeding children healthy food and stuff." Meanwhile, Obama is actually signing off stuff with corporations like Monsanto at the time to say that it's all right for them to take less stuff off your food product. But his wife is dancing on stage because children eat healthy, right? I'm just saying, it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. At some point, you got to start saying to yourself, if they're both attached to the same government and the government continues to mess everybody over, what's the point of this exercise? Right? Watch this. Calcium is something, supposedly, calcium is something that's given to everybody in hospitals, or not, or in hospitals, and really, I'm looking for, nursing homes, right? If you were to go to a nursing home, everybody in the nursing home is going to get calcium, supposedly calcium pills. You ready for this? Everybody there, though, is going to suffer from osteoporosis, just about. How do you suffer from osteoporosis if calcium is supposed to be something that helps your bones? Well, you got to look for a book called The Calcium Lie. Maybe read up on it and realize that calcium is not the only thing that your bones are made out of. They're giving them the cheapest thing that they can find, giving them a modified version of it, not the herb, but a piece of it. And then they're going to go ahead and keep giving it to them over and over and over again. Well, if calcium is supposed to strengthen the bone just by itself, then why do they all have osteoporosis? So calcium supplements within themselves ain't doing nothing. What about phosphorus? What about metals that you need? What about sodium you might need that help certain things? Calcium is actually going to help to calcify certain things, but not your bones. Calciums don't actually calcify or harden the bone. They do help the bone, but they're one part of what's going on. You think that you have stronger bones, right? Or that they're not as brittle. Calcium's not making your bones like to where people can hit them. Calcium is strengthening some of the muscles and stuff and the sinews and things like that. But it'll also, if you're only taking it or you're taking huge amounts of it, it can start to calcify that. Right. So I'm just saying, I'm just saying there's some stuff that we got to take place. This is sinister. And if they keep putting this stuff up, I don't care. Once again, I don't care about your race. I don't care about your creed. I don't care about your color. I don't care about this, that, or whatever. I'm just trying to tell you straight up. If they're lying to us like this on a regular basis, if this is what they call morality, I don't want to be governed by it. And I'm allowed. to have the right not to be governed by it. All right. So, anyways, I thank y'all for being on. I appreciate it. We're gonna go ahead and take our leave here. For those who are gonna see us tomorrow, we'll see you on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook tomorrow, and then we'll see you for Shabbat service and the podcast at 10 a.m. Eastern New York time tomorrow. And of course, for the children, we'll have Shabbat school, and brothers, we have our men's meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern New York time on Zoom. But thank you guys. Appreciate you. We honor you. Hopefully you guys are taking care. Ministerial staff, hopefully you've gotten the emails that we put out recently to make sure that we're all on the same page. Those of you who are part of the meeting, if ministers ask you about it or something, make sure you fill them in. Or if you weren't part of the meeting, you want some information, let me know. But I thank you guys. I appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and take my leave. You guys take care. Have an awesome day. Shabbat Shalom to you. Or for those who might not celebrate it until midnight, early Shabbat Shalom to you. Appreciate you. We will see you tomorrow. And continue to move in righteousness. As always, it's been, or also always, we give all praise and honor to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out as always on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. How you doing, Sister Irena? So thank you again for being on. Appreciate you. This has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat Shalom again. Peace, fam. Take care.